Bernadette Adoro, and I am thrilled to be part of Proud Dems US. We're an organization committed to helping Democratic candidates be successful. And right now we are filming the incredible New Mexico Democratic candidates that we have for statewide offices. We're trying to go deep so that you can hear them, see them, and decide which is the best candidate for you to vote for on June 7th.
And I'm Roberto James Montoya, and I hope that you enjoy this presentation of Meet the Candidate. Hello and welcome to ProudDems.us production of Meet the Candidate. And I am Roberto James Montoya, and I am on the Affirmative Action and the Platform Committee for the Democratic Party of New Mexico. And I'm with
Bernadette Adoro. I'm the chair of the Santa Fe County Democratic Party and also the past president of the Federation of Democratic Women and the National Board. I was the recording secretary. So we're grateful to be here with our candidates. And we're going to be speaking now with Joseph Maestas, a candidate for the state auditor position. So, Mr. Maestas.
Yes.
Please
glad to be here.
Thank you. We're glad you're here too. Tell us about yourself. We want to do a deep dive. Where are you from?
Yeah.
How many siblings do you have? Are your parents still alive? Tell us all about yourself and bring us up to where you're at today in your life.
Okay. Well, I was born in Santa Fe and raised in Santa Cruz. I don't know if many people know about where Santa Cruz is. It's in the Espanola Valley. And so I was brought up in a very large family. I come from a family of military veterans and public school teachers. There never ever was a lack of things to do at home because we had a small family farm. We had farm animals, summer gardens. We also had a family business. It was a liquor store, okay? But back then there wasn't the stigma that existed. It was kind of a gathering place. It was a cantina with an adjacent sala with a big dance hall. We hosted graduation parties, political rallies, you name it. So that was really kind of my surrounding was, feeding animals, tending to the garden, cleaning the business. And I'm one of 6 kids, and I actually had my dad as a school teacher, and so I really appreciate educators because my father, when he was building the house that I was raised in, it took him 7 years on a pay-as-you-go basis because he didn't want to borrow any money. And so that just gives you an idea that, we didn't have a lot. My mom was a homemaker, my dad was a teacher, and there were 6 kids in 1 bathroom. But it was always a lively household, lots of love, lots of work. My dad, being a teacher, I always emphasized the importance of grades. I never had my abuelitas. They both passed away before I was born. But it was really a good grassroots upbringing. And at 17, I left home and I went off to college and got my degree in civil engineering from the University of New Mexico. And a recession hit, and my dad said, you have to have a job before you graduate. And so I went ahead and interviewed for jobs. All the private sector bugged out. And so I ended up working for the federal government, and it offered me this 27-month internship that offered travel to see the country. And so I left New Mexico, and I was devastated. I really felt like I shouldn't have to leave my state. And this is the story, right? The brain drain. We need jobs here in New Mexico to keep our best and brightest. But I left, and I left the state for 16 years. And along the way, I worked in federal civil service for the Departments of Transportation. I worked for the Commerce Department and other agencies. And so it was really a good experience building a 33-year career in federal civil service. Along the way, I also got my master's degree, compliments of the federal government. I got my master's from Arizona State and passed my test to become a licensed professional engineer. But I'm most proud of what I've done when I came back. I came back to give back, and that is I wanted to serve the communities that I was born in and raised in. And so I ran for city council in Espanola and won, and started a progressive movement where I recruited progressive newcomers to run for office because the administration at that time was entrenched and not very ethical. And I was able to recruit newcomers. We ran in slates. We swept all positions in 2004, and then in 2000, I decided to run for mayor, and I recruited 4 progressive newcomers. Each slate, we had gender balance, because when I first ran for the Espanola City Council, there was 1 woman on a 9-member governing body. So when I ran in 06, we've swept all 6 positions. And so when I was able to appoint my replacement, I appointed a female senior citizen, and that provided the first female majority in the history of the Espanola City Council. And so I'm really proud of that. We worked very hard in reforming government. We did a lot of great things. And then I had to restart my career. I took a short hiatus while I was mayor. The recession of 2008 had hit, and so we were challenged just to make ends meet under those circumstances. But I went ahead and restarted my federal career. I went to work for the Bureau of Reclamation as a division manager here in Albuquerque, and I figured I couldn't be an effective mayor, working in Albuquerque. And so so I decided to not run for re-election, and I moved back to Santa Fe and proceeded to finish my career. And in 2014, I decided to run for Santa Fe City Council, and I ran in a 5-way race and prevailed, and I served the southeast side for 4 years. And I'm really proud of my service there. And so after I served in the city council, I decided to run for mayor, and I was unsuccessful, but undeterred. I went ahead and I wanted to put my skills as an engineer and a problem solver up to the voters to see if they're willing to support my candidacy for the Public Regulation Commission. I was a publicly financed candidate, and I prevailed. I had a challenger in the primary and the general. And so, and I didn't mention, I was also a publicly financed candidate when I ran for Santa Fe City Council. I still believe that we need to take money out of politics, but I'm really proud of going the public finance route. And so I've been on the Public Regulation Commission for the last 1.5 years. I'm the current chairman. As many of you know, that a lot of the elected commissioners were all out of office at the end of the year. And that's why I threw my hat in the ring to run for state auditor, because of my background in accounting, economics, engineering, regulatory law, being a project auditor for decades, in the federal government, being an elected official, holding a fiduciary responsibility. So every time any elected official takes the oath, you're responsible to protect the taxpayer funds of that subdivision of government. So that kind of brings us to today, to being your chairman of the Public Regulation Commission. I represent 1/5 of the state geographically, and that translates to just over 400,000 New Mexicans that I represent. So as a baby city councilor in Espanola, I was representing 2,500. Today I'm representing about 410,000 New Mexicans.
So please explain in your own words what you believe the primary responsibilities of the office you're running for, and
Yes.
and also, can you realistically achieve the goals that you have with the staff that you have now?
Okay. The Office of the State Auditor, I like to say that it's kind of the chief steward or protector of public finance throughout the state of New Mexico. That office has to oversee the conduct of almost 1,000 audits, and that applies to all public entities, all subdivisions of government. However, not all of those public entities are subject to a full audit. If you're a small irrigation district, depending on the revenue, it's stratified, and so there's certain levels of financial accountability for the smaller public entities, because you don't want to bankrupt them, right, and force them to engage in a $80,000 audit when their revenue is $25,000 a year. So it seems to be a very fair system. It does do special investigations. There's a special investigations division that oversees doing these special audits of larger subdivisions of government like CNM and other large educational systems. Oftentimes they may get a confidential allegation through the toll-free fraud, waste, and abuse hotline, and that you sometimes you don't know what's going to walk in the door. You can have a set budget, but if you get a tip through the anonymous hotline, you might have a full-fledged investigation on your hand. And then the second part of the office is that it's called the Government Accountability Office. It provides an information service where it compiles all the information from slightly under 600 audits. Mm-hmm. And these are the public entities that are subject to the full-blown financial audit. And the GAO, as I call it, the Government Accountability Office, compiles this single report that summarizes how public money is being spent in these 565 public entities. So it's an information service. How can I get done what needs to get done? The way I see the Office of the State Auditor is that it's got a really modest budget given the mission that it has. It's a constitutionally enabled office. It's one of 7 offices in the executive branch, ironically, along with the Public Regulation Commission, which I'm already a part of. Mm-hmm. But it's got about 35 employees, a budget of about $4 million, and that's really not enough given the scope of its mission, given the unknown nature of additional work that can be created through the hotline. Shoes always drop, mistakes are made. So what I'm going to do is do what I did for the PRC, is ensure that the Office of the State Auditor has sufficient budget to carry out its mission. One of the main, I think, points is that there's an audit fund, and the audit fund is capitalized through proceeds from the audits that the office conducts. And the state legislature forces the auditor to rely in part with that audit fund to defray its operational expenses, but the audit fund is gradually decreasing, and so it's no longer sustainable. And so it's time to really revisit the whole budget framework and the model of the Office of the State Auditor from a financial standpoint, and change it for the better, to empower it to keep fighting to protect public finances throughout the state of New Mexico.
Excellent, thank you. So let me ask you, what has been the most challenging part of this particular race that you've been running?
Well, I think these races require the courtship of the party faithful. And we have 33 counties in a very large, sparse state. Issues are very, very different. You have your progressives, you have your moderates, socially conservative. I'm talking about Democrats. I'm talking about this big tent that we're all a part of. And that's the challenge, is navigating through those philosophical differences that exist within the party. And I think in general, it's been a general challenge. The other challenge has been, traveling the state and trying to touch every single county. And I started this campaign, I think, in August. And, we were just coming out of the pandemic, and that made it extremely challenging to get out there. So there were a lot of Zoom conferences. I'm really zoomed out, to be honest with everyone out there, but that has been the challenge, is trying to really get out there physically and be present and be visible under this pandemic. The other thing is collecting petition signatures was extremely challenging, and of course, you're in a pandemic and you're in the middle of winter, and I can safely tell you that I got kicked out of so many parking lots, Trader Joe's, Sprouts, Whole Foods. I was notorious. Security guards, they knew me by my first name. Hey Joe, you gotta go. So that was another challenge, is gathering all those petition signatures. We actually gathered about 6,000, and all that was required was 3,500 valid signatures. And so that was another challenge. And I think the last part is is the convention. I think, trying to convince and persuade state central committee members and delegates to support your candidacy, and in kind of this, we're still, when the convention was held, it was still kind of quasi, there was some anxiety over the pandemic, but I think the convention was a challenge too, and I know that model's been talked about for potential change, but it's been a long road, and I'm really pleased that it's only a couple of weeks away, and I'm sure a lot of you out there are pleased that it's only just a few weeks away. I'm sure you're tired of all the ads and the robocalls and the phone calls, but it's almost over.
Well, thank you.
So next question, where do you see let's say you win this race, where do you see yourself in between now and the next 25 years?
Well, I see myself continuing to play a public role. I've dedicated my whole life to public service, and it's not for everybody. I understand that. I don't cling to titles. I don't hang my hat on titles. I like to be in a position to help people. And there's no greater feeling to help someone. I get constituent calls all the time as a PRC chairman in my district, and I jump on those. I don't fool around when it comes to constituent services. So where do I see myself in 25 years? I'd like to see myself, maybe not in public office, but maybe playing a public role, mentoring young Democrats and people that want to enter into public service, imparting whatever wisdom I can give them. Everybody has gold nuggets that they can share, and trust me, I've accumulated a few. I wish I could cash them in for real money, but I want to help the next generation, because you know what? It's not about me. It's about the young people, leading our country, leading our school boards, our city councils, our county commissions, and having served at the federal level, having served at the municipal level, and now serving at the statewide level, I have a good grasp of how government works at all these levels. And I think the big thing is knowing the culture of New Mexico, how the legislature works, the culture, knowing the regional culture, because different parts of the state has different cultures and different ways of doing things, and so it's the diversity of New Mexico that makes this just so beautiful. So I'm not going anywhere. I am staying here in New Mexico. I love New Mexico. I came back to give back, and I want to continue giving back to my communities.
So with that said, that brings us to our closing comments, and we'd like to ask you, why are you the best candidate for state auditor? And include those in your closing comments, please.
Well, I think I'm the best candidate because of my experience, the diversity of my experience, having served at all those levels. I think I'm the best candidate because voters have entrusted me to hold offices progressively at greater and greater responsibilities. I mentioned representing 2,500 people as an Espanola City Councilor. Now I represent over 400,000. And I think when you can demonstrate successfully that you can handle a tougher, complex job, if it's an elected position or what have you, I think that instills confidence in voters. And I think I've done that over the course of my public service. I think leadership is instrumental to this. As a former mayor, I had to look for and vet and hire a competent executive team, because I know, we can't do this alone. You have to rely on people that you trust, people that are qualified and professional. And so I bring that experience as a former mayor with that leadership, putting together a team and sharing a vision, to move a community forward, and in this case, sharing a vision to move New Mexico forward. And so I believe I bring that to the table. And then I think the applicable expertise that I spoke about, holding that fiduciary responsibility, As an elected official, I had to review and approve audit contracts. I had to sit in on entrance conferences, exit conferences. I participated in special audits, forensic audits. And I think that all comes together, I think, to really make me the best qualified and experienced candidate, someone who doesn't need any on-the-job training. And as I said before, I'm already part of the executive branch, being an elected member of the Public Regulation Commission. And so it'd be an absolute honor and privilege to have your support and your vote as the next state auditor for our great state of New Mexico.
Great. Joseph Maestas for state auditor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's almost over.